Zanzibar, Mombasa, Lamu. 3 cities we can all dream of visiting. 3 cities that dot the Swahili coast in East Africa on the Indian Ocean. 3 cities that all enjoyed immense wealth from the 16th century onwards, thanks to trade in gold, but also in ivory, and above all, in slaves. At the end of the 19th century, Zanzibar merchant Tipu Tip was one of the richest men on the continent. He captured slaves in the heart of the Congo and put to work over 10,000 men on his clove plantations. He and other merchants in the service of various occupiers, first the Portuguese, then the sultans from Oman, enabled the emergence of the 3 cities that ruled the region for 3 centuries. But the British conquest and the abolition of slavery in the empire led to the decline of the Swahili coast. Today, Zanzibar, Mombasa and Lamu are UNESCO World Heritage Sites, seemingly frozen in time. They rely heavily on tourism, but the memory of slavery is often painful and sometimes deliberately erased. We're going to take you along the route once taken by the slave traders. Bastien Renwi and Elodie Cousin revisit the Swahili coast for France 24.
Before the cattle pond was built.
Zanzibar, a name that captivates tourists from around the world. The island has become known for its spices and pristine beaches. But few visitors know about the history of this East African archipelago. In the 19th century, it was a major trade hub on the Swahili coast.
Zanzibar gradually became a centre of commerce. Trade was of utmost importance. Everything was sold here, from elephant tusks to gold and copper to prostitution. And of course, there was the slave trade. Humans were sold at a market that used to be here.
On the streets of Stone Town, the island's historic capital, a procession is unfolding. Zanzibar was built on the backbone of the slave trade. Between the 17th and the 20th centuries, hundreds of thousands of people were brought here. Today, for the first time, Zanzibarians are celebrating the anniversary of the 1873 abolition of the slave trade.
We commemorate so that we can learn from the lessons of the past and what they mean to us today, and what it means to bring us together in terms of appreciating the heritage that we have and promoting this very unique heritage of Zanzibar at the national, regional and global communities.
Their aim is to attract more tourists. It's become the island's primary source of income, with over 600,000 visitors in 2023. Many come to Stone Town to admire its unique heritage. Buildings made of coralline ragstone were erected at its peak, but centuries later, the old city is crumbling. The government wants to reinvest money from tourism into preservation efforts. These 2 employees from the Ministry of Tourism and Heritage are here to follow the construction progress.
What are they doing here?
Actually, they are doing a major repair of the building.
Yeah. It's under your supervision?
Yes, it is under our supervision. In fact, it's one among the historical hotels in Zanzibar.
Many buildings are now owned by private investors. So the government has set up a conservation authority.
You are not supposed to change anything inside and outside. And you have to make sure that you follow the same material as it has been built before. Once after issuing the building permit, then we have our supervisor is coming here every day to make sure that they are doing as we have been permitted them.
Key sites have been preserved. This church was built on the same spot as a former slave market. Before being sent to Oman and islands in the Indian Ocean, slaves were crammed into these cells.
We have to remember it because it can make us to know where we have been, where we are, and where we are going. Existence of monument like this can add up with something that someone knows. Because you can just hear that the slaves were chained at the neck and the chain are joined from one another. But at that time, there was no clear picture. So to get the clear understanding of the things somehow is difficult.
2/3 of the island's population were once enslaved. Many were sent to work on clove plantations. After independence, the people regained control of these fields. Today, Zanzibar is still full of clove farms, as spices are its main export.
I don't think about slavery when I work among the trees. That era is gone in our country. These trees support my family. They enable us to have a roof over our heads and food on our table.
In this government-owned plantation, work continues even outside harvest season. Nasir and his colleagues must maintain the trees, which are a core part of Zanzibar's heritage and wealth.
Our challenge is that the old clove trees that we planted have bigger but less tasty fruits. Today, the government is helping us to plant new clove trees and prepare the soil to grow them better.
Once the clove trees bloom, these farmers will collect the buds and then take them to the markets.
To keep dry on the mats on the open space for 3 to 5 days, depending to the strongness of the sunlight. So we get like this one, and after that, just we go to selling to the authorized our authorities, Zanzibar State Trade Cooperation Center, but also other that they're selling to the visitors.
Here, everything revolves around tourists. Zanzibar has embraced its history and its heritage. But not all towns along the Swahili coast relate to their past in the same way. We set sail for Kenya on a dhow. A traditional boat that used to transport slaves, but is now popular among tourists. We arrive in Mombasa, the country's second largest city, which used to be a key stop on the slave trade route.
These are the village where the slaves were starting from. Were taken from where? You go there, where they are being taken, accused. This is the chains. Here it is the boat, where they are taken to the sea. They are taken to the sea. Here they came to be freed by battles, fair treat. Here they can get their freedom.
In 1873, Britain imposed a treaty on Zanzibar that banned the slave trade along the Swahili coast. 2 years later, Arab traders were at sea with a boat of slaves. The British liberated them and brought them to Mombasa. This square lies at the heart of the history of the Freetown community, named after the treaty.
If there is anything abnormal happening, it is going to be Iran. With their tone and sound, which the message go to the community to take cover for any bad people who are coming, like Arabics, who are come to catch them and go to sing them.
After they were freed, former slaves were allocated uninhabited land. This Freetown neighborhood has become an integral part of Mombasa.
This house belongs for the late Douglas Peter. His mother, he was from the slaves from Malawi. People from here, the slaves coming from here, from Malawi, Seychelles, Sierra Leone, Tanzania, Mozambique. So it is somehow different because it's a mixture of different tribes.
Over the years, descendants of slaves married into the Kenyan population. Despite being integrated, they still carry the legacy of a painful past. Jones and his organisation have been collecting their stories.
When they were taken, they were being put chains, mlolongo. Now, when they are in the boat, when you try to stab or try to run, you are being taken, thrown into the water. So many of them died on the way from Dar es Salaam, Tanzania to here.
Testimonies like May's are rare. She's among 5,000 people in the community, but few are interested in their history. Jones has been gathering archives at his home.
Yeah, we have to collect them for remembrance. Like I didn't see all these pictures at my time when I was young until I'm growing old. I come to know recently the church, how it was started, how people were living there. Yeah, so I even know how the house will look like.
In Mombasa, some buildings from that era still stand, but there are no original documents. Here are some replicas of photographs kept in a British museum. The association is hoping to bring these memories back to Kenya.
If it is possible to get copies, and the remaining their copies, and ours to come back here, that is why we need to have our own museum. If we have our museum, for them also to be easier, they will know that if we bring these things back to the freed slaves descendants, they will take care of them because they have somewhere to put them.
But the project needs funding. The association is hoping to attract donors. It's possible. Some further north have achieved it. We set off again, this time to the archipelago of Lamu, which was a cradle of Swahili civilization 700 years ago. The town developed through trade with Europe, the Middle East, and Asia.
Lamu people are so hospitable because the basis of Lamu was built by acknowledging a visitor is an asset to Lamu. So whoever comes to Lamu is welcome.
Lamu was a major trade hub in East Africa long before Zanzibar. Precious woods, elephant tusks, and slaves passed through here as well. Since its peak, the old town has remained frozen in time. There were no cars here, only carts and donkeys.
When the British arrived, Lamu lost its prominent role as a trading port. So the port was actually moved to Mombasa. That became the most important trading point for the British East African Protectorate. But still, Lamu started to rise as a tourist center. We can see posters from as early as 1940.
Mohamed Mwenje oversees Lamu's historical sites, including its museum that was renovated in 2023. On the ground floor is an ethnographic exhibition that showcases how the islanders' lives have evolved over time.
These are just some illustrations of the different ceremonies.
Interestingly, the upper floor glorifies Oman. The country has invested in the archipelago, which was once part of its protectorate, by renovating this museum. Oman now influences the historical narrative. The slave trade is not mentioned here.
I don't think anything will be compromised. I mean, all researchers have their own angle, which they would like to look at. And I think, if anything, this is just going to enrich the body of information. The information will be there. It is available for critique. It is available for scrutiny. And I don't think it will compromise the historical records as it stands.
Some people told us they are frustrated about Oman's historical perspective, but they didn't want to say this on camera. The island's rich heritage is what attracts tourists and enables it to thrive.
We are losing identity with the modernization and all that. Without the history of Lamu, Lamu tourism has no identity without the history of Lamu. So you have to know the history of Lamu so that we can get more tourists.
Zanzibar, Mombasa, Lamu. Today, their history is being lived and told in different ways. The legacy of the slave trade hasn't been forgotten 150 years after its abolition. It's crucial to preserve this history so that it can be passed on to future generations.
Bastien Renouy and Elodie Cousin revisiting the Swahili coast for France 24. Well, that's all from this week's edition. You can catch it and the previous editions as well on our website at france24.com. Thanks for watching. More news coming up shortly.